Now, we are going to listen Didar Singh. You all know him, former Secretary of the Government of India. Please, Dr. Singh, could you please begin?
Yeah, thank you, Professor Enrique. I hope you can all hear me. I'm a former bureaucrat, so I'm going to be very crisp and I'm going to limit myself to the 7 minutes you've allotted and make 5 basic points. Point number one: what is high skilled migration? High skilled migration is debated around the world, and there are different criteria for measuring high skills. Some countries follow wage criteria, some countries follow skills criteria. But basically, to make it simple for all of us to understand, I'm going to limit myself to saying that high skill migration is professionals, whereas low skill migration is labor. This is the distinction. It's a very rough distinction, but this is the distinction that I'm going to make. Point number two: there are many positives and there are many negatives so far as sending and receiving countries are concerned. This refers to both high skilled and low skilled migration. It refers to all migration. For sending countries, the biggest issue is brain drain. The second issue is that this could raise skilling within the country itself so that high skilled migrants can travel better and go better. Third aspect is remittances increase. And fourth aspect is that all countries promote or try to promote some amount of circulation in the migration, particularly of high skilled migrants. So far as receiving countries are concerned, the funny thing is that there is in this pandemic and now developing around the world something which has been there for a long time, which is there is an anti feeling against all migrants. There is a feeling developing and a fear developing both for low skilled migrants and high skilled migrants that they take away jobs. The second more dangerous thing so far as receiving countries are concerned is there is talking of stealing of technology. They say particularly high skilled migrants steal technology. Students and professors steal technology. This has become a big issue in the USA China debate, which we are all aware of. In case of receiving countries, there's also a greater emphasis on R&D and knowledge sharing, and skills migration therefore begins to have an impact both on sending countries as well as receiving countries. The important point for us to understand out here is that it's actually the professionals that, if at all, will impact the jobs of the receiving countries and not really the low skilled labor migrants. And yet it's the other way around. There is a greater antipathy. More countries try to make rules to encourage high skilled migrants and reduce low skilled migrants from coming into their country. This is a very odd thing that you notice across the world so far as policy is concerned. Item number three: so far as pandemic is concerned, we know that what it is doing is it is speeding up change which is already happening. It's nothing very new, but that has led to a great feeling of a tremendous antipathy and fear against anything that migration represents. This is leading to a tremendously new program and a new problem that has occurred across many countries, including my own, which is return migration. We are now beginning to see a very large amount of return migration happening of workers, of laborers, of professionals, and they have to be accommodated in the economy that they return to. And this, of course, is also impacting remittances, which are now beginning to reduce. But as Professor Enrique informed also a little earlier, technology usage is increasing and we'll see more and more of this. Fourth point: Asia. We are talking today of Latin America and Asia. So far as Asia is concerned, I'll make a very rough kind of statement out here of what is high skilled migrants. I would roughly divide that in the 100% of migrants that go from Asia, and one third of all migrants around the world are actually from Asia, I would say 70% are low skilled and 30% are high skilled. It's a very rough calculation, but it would apply to Philippines, India, Nepal, Bangladesh, Sri Lanka, even China to some amount. Now, this is a very rough estimation, but it's giving you an idea of what we are talking about. And fifthly, the last point that I'm going to be making is what is the future of high skilled migration. So far as future is concerned, let us understand that with the pandemic and the way the whole migration debate is now happening around the world, you're going to see more and more of localization and less of globalization. This will have an impact on business. It will have an impact on the very functioning of individual countries, but it is something that we have to build into our future policy making. The next point about the future is, as Professor Enrique himself was also mentioning, technology will play a greater role. Already, right now, we are in the Zoom conference. This is all about technology, and we'll see more and more of this technology being used. And particularly for migration, the use of technology for information, whether you are going for migration or you are returning for migration, information and knowledge will play a greater role in it. Finally, we are talking about managing migration, which is what is this whole debate is all about. All countries around the world, whether you're Canada, Australia, USA, UK, whatever the receiving countries, they want to manage migration. Now, to manage migration and to make correct policies on migration, the single most important thing that you need to have is that of the voice of the migrants themselves. Nowhere in our policy making do we implement aspects to encourage the voice of the migrants. At least so far as high skill migration is concerned, definitely the voice of the migrants can be brought in and can be really seen, particularly in all the receiving countries. And that's the last point I'll leave you with. How do we encourage more of research, more of papers, more of work, more of articles to say that the voice of the migrants must get heard? Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Singh, for this very clever and very informative account. I should also remind